Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me for the second season of Freethinker Friday. Today we are going to talk about all things kindergarten. Welcome to all of my panelists as well as my guests viewing from home or work. Viewers, as you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. My name is Robyn Hare and I'm the Assistant Director of Admission for the lower school. Lower school at MPA is pre-K through grade 4. And I'm also a very proud parent of a 4th grade MPA Panther. I'm going to have my guests introduce themselves. Jules, would you like to go first?
Absolutely. I'm Dr. Jules Nolan. I'm a licensed psychologist and school psychologist, and I have been with MPA since 2014. I am available to parents at any time for any reason.
Kristine?
Hi, I'm Kristine Petersen. I'm known as Miss P, and I have been at Mounds Park Academy since 1988. Long time. Love it.
Liz?
Bonjour. I'm Liz DesLauriers, and I teach lower school and some middle school French here at Mounds Park Academy, and I am in my 10th year here, so yay, it's going great. And then I have a first grader at Mounds Park Academy, and then I will have a kindergartner next year.
Great, thank you. And Tiffany?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tiffany Scott Knox. We have been with the MPA community for 6 years. We have a son, Alexander, who is in 5th grade in middle school now, and then Ava, who is in kindergarten.
Great. And Clarence?
Hello, my name is Clarence Knox. I'm husband of Tiffany. As she said, we have a 5th grader, Alex, and kindergartner, Ava. And so we've been at MPA for 6 years.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to hop right in as we have a lot of ground to cover today. Many people ask me a lot of questions about admission at MPA, but one of the biggest ones is, what does my son or daughter need to do in order to be ready for kindergarten? And to me, that's kind of a two-part question. So I'm going to ask Kristine first. Kristine, can you speak a little bit to what children should be able to do academically, or what type of academic exposure they should have in order to be prepared for kindergarten?
Absolutely. I think that the most important thing is to expose your children to everyday skills and routines. So how do they experience the bathroom? If you're always in the bathroom with them, providing all of that supervision, then being at school in the bathroom is going to be a new adventure. And so it's best to have those discussions ahead of time and prepare for those kind of new moments. Same with eating their lunch. What is expected? What is the purpose of eating your snack, your lunch? Why is it important? So that if you have all that nutrition in your body, you can continue on with your day and do well. Also, I think helping them with the routine. Is there a little routine within your family as to where they put their coats, where they put their boots? Are they organized with their supplies, their possessions? The more independence, the more they're involved in their day and what's expected from them, the more success they'll have transitioning into the kindergarten program. And so I expect that partnership with my families to help me in those moments, those everyday life moments. How do they deal with their big emotions? What do they do if they're sad? What do they do when they're angry? Having those kind of conversations at home in that safe, nurturing environment, we can then bridge with how it's dealt with at school. So things like that. I'm sure people are thinking, I want you to have them know the periodic tables, and I want you to make sure they know their math facts. No, that's not it at all. We really do believe in the developmental journey of children, and it needs to start with those basics, those basic exposures to their daily lives and their routines.
Okay, thanks, Kristine. Jules, as a follow-up, can you speak to what is important for children to be socially prepared?
Yeah, excellent. Many of the things that Kristine said were exactly what kids need to be socially prepared. We
Yeah.
want them to be able to have some time apart from mom and dad. So if you have been with your children all of the time, like many people have been in the pandemic, practice having them stay at friend's house, practice having that moment when they have to depart from you become easy. When I was young mother, we used to sing the Mama Comes Back song. Mama comes back, she always comes back. That song. That was helpful for my kids to help them depart from me. But that is really important. They need to be able to sit for a time. And we don't expect kindergartners to sit a long, long time, but they need to be able to sit for a time and pay attention and listen. They need to practice sharing and taking turns. They need to be able to manage their big, strong emotions, but we understand that they will need lots of help. So all of the social and emotional skills that we think of as what we work on in, preschool and kindergarten, that's where to focus your time and energy.
Okay. Yeah. Jules, I'm going to ask kind of a related question. How important is it that kindergartners or pre-kindergartners spend time playing? Just good old-fashioned playing without a TV in front of them, without a phone or video games. How important is that?
Critically important. In fact, the research tells us that unstructured playtime, so this is not playtime that is directed by you or a camp counselor, but unstructured playtime where kids need to use their imagination, particularly with other kids, where they have to create rules of a game, where they have to convince friends to participate in the rules of the game. Kids who spend more unstructured playtime have more creativity, more persistence, more confidence. They are more well-rounded as children. They typically have they're better able to manage their strong emotions because they have practiced it. So unstructured playtime is critically important. As much of that as you can get will prepare your child best.
Thank you very, very much. Kristine, I'm going to pop back to you. I talked with you about what do kindergartners need to be ready academically. Typically, I work with children who have been introduced to letters all the way up to children who could read at a first or a second grade level. Can you talk a little bit about how differentiation within your classroom works when children are at such varying academic levels? And how does that small class size help you in that role?
Well, of course, when you have that small class size, you can have a lot more one-on-one time with each student. And what we really value at MPA is having conversations. So I am able to every day hear what my students are thinking, feeling, their creativity, their imagination. How do they approach their learning? I am able to get so much insight into who they are as learners that then I can start figuring out what I need to do to individualize for each student. So they may think they're all doing the same assignment, but they're not. So I can quietly go over and say, oh, you've done this. Would you mind thinking about this? Could we do this part? And so we all know that we celebrate each other. We don't compare our brains to anybody else. We are all on our own individual journey. And so it's really lovely to hear them compliment each other. Oh, nice fine motor. Boy, you did a great job. No stick people on that page. And it's lovely to see where they really support each other. So for me, it's really easy with a small class size to discover who each child is and then to start to assess where they're at and where I'd love for them to be to really reach their full potential.
Yeah, thank you very much. Jules, I'm going to just pop right back to you. I'm sorry to keep you guys on the spot here. You touched on this a little bit, and I want to circle back. The pandemic, COVID-19. Many parents have been speaking with me about how their children have been pretty isolated in their early years because of COVID-19. So what are some ways that they can help their children relearn those critical social and emotional skills right now, and also when vaccines are available for younger children?
Really good question. I'm hearing this from lots of parents. And what I'm hearing is that the pandemic has interrupted development, particularly social development. We talk about the middles and the littles. So middle school kids and little kids, the early elementary school kids have had the most trouble. We're seeing the most regression essentially in behavior and in social emotional learning skills. But that is not to say that all is lost. Kids will gain more SEL skills as they practice them. And so, as long as we as parents can have confidence, not get too worried about it, know that this will come, we just are sure that our kids are going to be fine. And the more sure that we are that they're going to be fine, the more fine they will be, because our kids cannot be better adjusted than we are. So we've got to get to that certainty part and then expose them to other kids. You know, we don't make friends, we find friends. And we find friends by being with other kids and practicing those skills. Remember that the pace of change for kids is always slower than we wish it would be. So we just have to be patient and know that the time will come if they get to practice these things.
Yeah, and I remember listening to talk about co-regulation before, and that's really true that they are going to kind of even out the way that we're doing as parents, aren't they?
Yeah, they absolutely are. Kids can have the ability, we all have the ability to sort of read the underlying emotional state of each other. That's that phenomenon when you walk into a room and you feel like somebody has been fighting with somebody else. You don't really know what's going on, but you know you're feeling uncomfortable. There's an uncomfortable silence. That's co-regulation. And little kids have that stronger than older kids, but we all have it to some degree. So when we are feeling anxious, when we are feeling worried, when we are feeling uncertain, when we've spent too much time listening to the news and we're worried about the future of our planet, of our children, of our communities, our kids can read that. Now, they don't do it conscious awareness. They don't say, oh, gee, my mother seems to be unhappy. They just feel uncomfortable. And so we can help our kids feel more comfortable by taking care of our mental health, by taking care of our own anxiety, by taking care of all of the underlying things that affect the way we are adjusted.
Yeah, thank you. So Clarence and Tiffany, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. In admission, I talk a lot with parents about making sure that they are in the school that is the right fit. It's not just the right fit for us, but it's the right fit for families as well. Can you tell us what were some of the determining factors for the two of you as you were looking for school for Alexander and for Ava?
Thank you so much, Robyn, for that. I always tell people that my husband teased me quite a bit because I had many spreadsheets when I was looking or when we were looking for schools that sorted out our needs. But I started there. Honestly, I really did. I looked at what our family needs and our children's learning styles. I wanted a small classroom for Alex so that he can have that intimate relationship with Mrs. P. And she was Alex's kindergarten teacher. So the stuff that she's talking about is really real. And I think just know and feel the school. So we toured, this is pre-COVID, of course, but we were able to be on site and really experience the classrooms, talk to teachers and administrators, and then observe classrooms as well, and talk to other parents who either had an experience with Mounts Mark Academy or currently were send their kids to MPA. And that would help me kind of sort out like the feel and the culture of MPA. And then lastly, trust your gut. For me, that's always super, super important. So that's kind of where we were when we were looking for a school and landed at MPA for Alex. Clarence, I'll volley over to you to see if there was anything you wanted to add.
No, I think you summed it up. All of those things really just made the experience that much more fruitful. One of the biggest things I could, from perspective, is just the community, and that's what we wanted. That community extends not only from the administration to the teachers, but also for the students and the parents. And so that sense of community is one of the biggest assets to MPA. And then also the feel that Alex and Ava had while they were there. You know, it's not just our experience. A lot of times we're thinking of how we feel. It also has a lot and more to do with the students and how they feel there. And they have felt at home. And so, although when we first started the MPA, we lived in Minneapolis, there were a couple mornings where that 45-minute drive was bearing, but to see Alex just as happy and every day excited to talk about school and to go to school, that's the most rewarding experience.
Yeah, I think that's something interesting that you brought up, is that that's a heck of a commute, isn't it? I think one of the things that I am noticing is that we are having more and more families saying that they're making their housing choice based on their school choice. So their school choice is the first choice that they make, and then they decide where they live. And so I have parents that are coming to me from all parts of the Twin Cities and outside of Minnesota, and they're looking for school first and house second. Can you tell me, what is Ava's favorite part of kindergarten? What's her favorite part of the day?
That's so interesting. Good question. There's so many parts. I don't know if I can distinguish one. So a couple things. I will say this though. She loves coming in the morning and fist bumping with Dr. Hudson. That's like her absolute favorite. And just carving out that time. And it's so important that, you know, she sees him there, and they've had a connection since early on, since she was a little baby. But I think also just seeing her friends and definitely music and music, theater, and just learning from Miss P has been fantastic for her. So, like, she's finally at MPA, I would say, is huge. I mean, she's been waiting for so long, and she's always thought she attended MPA because it was her big brother's school. So
that's pretty neat. You touched on something, and I wanted to continue that conversation. When you talked about theater and music, and MPA education offers so much, but one of the many benefits in my mind is that we have a really rigorous specialist schedule. So kindergartners, I'm going to walk through the schedule for the day. They have world language 7 out of 10 days a week. They have music and art every other day. They have PE 3 times a week in the Lansing Sports Center. They have drama 3 times a week. They have library and technology integrationists every week. So it's a pretty busy day. They are really cooking and seeing a lot of different people. Liz, you teach French at MPA, and typically in the United States, students don't start learning a world language until they are in the middle school. And when they do start learning, the focus is generally on grammar and vocabulary versus like a real immersion style of teaching and learning. Can you tell us what it's like to learn a language as a lower school student at MPA?
Absolutely. So kind of one thing I wanted to touch on was just a little kind of brief introduction to our program. Our program is considered a FLES program as opposed to an exploratory program. Most elementary programs, if schools have them, are exploratory programs, which would be where students would be in a world language classroom once, maybe twice a week. And I think you just said for kindergarten, they have world language 7 out of the 10 days. And by the time they're in 4th grade, they're having world language 9 out of the 10 days for 35 minutes. So we are really able to really get in deep with our themes and working with students in the world language. One of, you said immersion style, and kind of the method that goes along with that is something called comprehensible input. And as world language teachers, That's kind of what we always think about when we are planning our lessons and executing our lessons. And the comprehensible input just basically means, is the information that I'm going to be presenting in the target language going to be understandable for my students? Because I could sit in front of the classroom and stand there and just speak French all day, and it wouldn't really do much good for them. But if we break it down into this comprehensible input category and plan lessons, so we are, working with an authentic text or a poem, and and as we introduce that, we work through the vocabulary, maybe using pictures, maybe having them do the actions to the vocabulary, and then breaking down the language structure. So we might spend 1 to 2 weeks just working on a small piece of a poem. And then also, they do a lot of activities in world language classrooms that they do in their homeroom classrooms, in their language arts class. And so it's a really nice reinforcement to those skills, except for we do them in French. And we break down those directions. We might spend 1 day on one set of directions, and then, so it takes us longer, but it's well worth the wait because of the input that students are receiving. So those are just kind of some of the ways that we give our students comprehensible input, and that we provide with them through lower school and into our middle and upper school classrooms. And yes, as they get into the higher levels of the language, they do start talking about the grammar and have tests and things like that. But with the foundation that we provide them in lower school, those kind of things come quite easily to them as they progress through learning a language. We're able to offer our students a lot of cultural experiences with technology these days. I've had my friends from France Zoom into my classroom and show me around their little neighborhood and have conversations with my students in French. I mean, that's just so fun. We offer food tasting, and there's lessons all around the food, demonstrations. We have offered field trips in the past, some of this stuff we're getting back into now. So as K-1-2, we're looking at more of just that focus on the understanding, and then as they get into 3rd and 4th grade, we start really working with the 4 modalities of listening, reading, speaking, writing, age appropriate. And of course, we have to say, we make all of our lessons to be joyful, and there's lots of music, and I love to have fun in French with my students, speaking French, doing French, listening to them in French, and I know that's the same for my counterpart who teaches Spanish. So, yeah, that's.
Yeah, you're definitely one of Charlie's very favorite teachers. The thing that I love about you, Liz, is I can hear your big laugh from all the way down the hall. I can hear that you're having a good time. As a really quick follow-up to that question, I am guessing that people ask you quite often, when will my child be fluent?
Well, that is a great question. And of course, as we know, every child and every person is different. And if you think about how we approach language, how kind of I just explained, it's very similar to how a baby learns language. It's kind of a natural approach. And if you think about sometimes babies are speaking at a very young age, and, all the way up to 2 years, and all of that falls in the normal category. And so it's the same with learning a world language. And some students, even as young as kindergarten, are going home and producing language immediately. And then some are doing what I just described, and they're just taking it all in. So they're understanding it, and it's going to come later. So that's a tough one to pinpoint when that's going to happen. I know that we have an amazing language program here, and we go through 12th grade, and then I know, we've heard from a lot of former students who move on, and and tell us what they've done with their language after high school. And there's quite a few students who have incorporated language into what they're doing now in their lives. So,
thank you. I want to just take a break. If there's any questions that audience members have, feel free to put it in the chat and we will make sure that we answer those questions. Okay, Jules, back to you. Another question I often get asked in admission is, my son or daughter has a summer birthday. Should I push them ahead or should I hold them back? What are your thoughts on this, Jules?
So the best predictor for outcomes for children are those social and emotional learning skills we talked about before. And in fact, Minnesota Department of Education has standards and benchmarks for what kids should be able to do in preschool and in kindergarten. That is a better predictor of outcomes than IQ, than their academic achievement, than their class rank, than their popularity, although popularity is connected to social and emotional skills, because kids who have better social and emotional skills are better able to know how to be a good friend. So I think the date of the birthday is less important than if your kid has some self-awareness about when they are being a good friend and when maybe they're bugging somebody. Some ability to inhibit the impulse to touch other people's stuff and to move around a lot. The ability to make friends, know how to go up to a kid or join a circle to be friends with other people. Those are the three critical areas, especially at this age. And then as they get older, it's things like relationship skills and responsible decision making. So rather than focus on the date of the birth, I would focus on their social and emotional learning skills.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this. Alternatively, I often hear parents say, my son or daughter is incredibly bright. I want to pursue early entrance to kindergarten. Any different thoughts on that one?
No, in fact, the common belief about kids is that holding them back is a good practice when they're struggling at school. And if nothing changes, really the research does not support that. And alternately, pushing kids ahead, in other words, starting early, assuming they have the SEL skills that they need, and also are, high in the 95th percentile with regard to academic achievement and IQ scores, that the outcomes for those can be good. Having said that, it is more important that they have the social and emotional skills, because we often see kids who start early, get to be older, and then they're lagging in their SEL skills, and then all of that becomes a problem for them. And there's time for them to grow up. I think that we need to let kids be kids as long as humanly possible. There is all sorts of time for school. They will be in school a whole big chunk of their life, and more time in unstructured play is always good for kids.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that, because I have a son with a summer birthday, and he is now a sophomore. He actually was raised in Belgium, where the cutoff date for school was very different. It wasn't January 1st, so it wasn't really an issue. But now, when we moved to the US, he was a middle schooler, and we did see, oh, wow, there is a difference when they're older. And I always thought it was just when they were like in kindergarten or in first grade. Liz, you teach students through 8th grade. Do you have any general observations about students in middle school who are young for their grade versus older for their grade?
Well, back to kind of what everyone was saying, every kid is going to be different and is going to go through that experience differently. But I could say that, yes, there are times where maybe the younger ones are having a more difficult time kind of with the responsibilities or some of the social things that are happening in those upper middle school grade levels.
Thank you. With our last remaining minute, Clarence and Tiffany, we are pretty proud of being a pre-K through 12 school all under one roof. It's kind of a joyful atmosphere for us. Besides convenience, which it is super convenient to have your children at the same school, you have a son in the middle school and a daughter in the lower school. You have one drop off, one pickup. What are some of the benefits that you see of having Alex and Ava being with children who are older and younger?
Yeah, that's a great question. And once again, I think that ties back to that answer of community. It's very important, and I think it really benefits the school as a whole. When Alex first attended MPA, we noticed that a lot of the upper school students were migrating to him, and he migrated to them also. This happened very early in assemblies. They would ask him to sit with them. And from a parent's perspective, normally it's kind of, oh, what are the older kids doing with my, kindergartner? But you felt safe. And that's the whole thing of the community. You felt safe. Um, that was a highlight of his day. They knew his name. They would give him high fives in the hallway. They would talk to him. And I think that it just creates a model both for the younger kids to see how the older kids respond and pay attention to them. But also in reverse, it gives the older kids a model of knowing that there are little kids who are aware of them also. So it kind of works towards kind of altruistic character for both the smaller and the older kids.
Yeah. Tiffany, do you have anything else that you want to add to that?
No, it's just honestly, it's been a magical experience. It's Ava is 5 and she was going to preschool at a different school, and we ran into a former MPA student, and it was so interesting because when she said the student's name, we kind of didn't necessarily believe her, but then we looked and got out the car and she like ran up to this student. She wasn't even at MPA then. So I think it really is a testament to the magical experience of being on a pre-K through K or 12 school. And this is lifelong now for us that they have those relationships with that student, and just seeing other kids that they are familiar with. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, I think of my son, Charlie, his reading buddy. So once a week, Cassie picks him up from his 4th grade classroom at the end of the day, and they just read out loud to each other. They're pounding through a book and they're reading out loud, reading in funny voices, asking questions of each other. And it's just, this is just part of his MPA education. And it's really, really special. He really is very fond of Cassie, and it's nice to know that there's an upper school student that has really invested in him. So without keeping anyone any longer, I want to thank everyone so much for joining me. Panelists, thank you so very much for your wisdom in kindergarten. Viewers, if you have any further questions, and I want you to not hesitate to reach out to the Office of Admission at MPA. We'd love to connect with you. Our next Freethinker Friday is on December 10th, and we are going to be talking about STEAM, the MPA way, and I hope you can all join us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.